Okay guys, so we are doing chapter 24 in this video, and chapter 24 is similar to kind of what we did with chapter 21, except over here we're going to have probably some a little bit of carrying going on as well. So to do number 2, and I don't want the students doing this part to the side because I think that this is already hard enough, just the concept of multiplication. So we're going to not do this, and we're just going to focus on the multiplication part. Okay, and then if we have more time in the semester, then we can go through that because but for now I just want them to focus on multiplying straight across, straight up and down. Okay, so we have 24 times 18, and then that is 8 times 4 is 32. So we put the 2 here, we carry the 3. And one thing that students have been having a hard time with is that when they get 8 times 4 is 32 and they put the 2 here and they put the 3 on top of the 4. So that's why I'm saying you carry over. So we put the 2 down, we carry over the 3. So it has to go next to the number next to the number that you just multiplied. So if I just did 8 times 4, then the next number over is 2. So I say carry over so that students don't get confused. Okay, so we did that. Now we do 8 times 2, that's 16. We add 3 to 16 and we get 19. Okay, and now what we do is we put our 0 here for our placeholder because we're about to start multiplying here. And then we cross off the 8, cross off the 3. Okay, so we just multiplied our ones place by everything on top. Now we're doing the tens place by everything on top. So the 0 makes us make sure that we put all of our answers into the tens place because that's where we're starting now. Okay, so we cancel these out because we don't want to get confused and re-add anything that we already added that we carried over. And we don't want to get confused and think that we have to do anything with the 8. So we're all done with those. And remember, every number on the bottom gets multiplied by every number on top. This is the next number on the bottom, so it has to be multiplied by everything on top. We get 1 times 4, that's 4. We get 1 times 2, and that is 2. Now we can add. So another thing that's important is putting your numbers right underneath each other. That's very important so that you don't get confused later, because if they're not exactly where they're supposed to be, then you can get them very confused and add up the wrong numbers in the wrong places. So if I have my 0 all the way over here, and then I have my 2 over here, but then I have my 9 here, then that just is going to ruin everything. It's not going to come up to what the answer is actually supposed to be. So we have 2 plus 0, that is 2. We have 9 plus 4, that is 13. And then we have 2 plus 1 and plus 1 again, which is 4. So that's the answer for that one. Okay. That one is for number 2 on the first page. So the next page has 22, well, the same page. The next problem is 22 times 26. Let me see if there's one where I would like to find one where I carry on both. Okay, I'm actually going to do number 6, because on number 6 you have to carry both times, and that's what I'm looking for. So I want to do a problem where we carry when we multiply our ones and when we multiply our tens place. So over here we have 36 times 24. So we do every number on the top gets multiplied, on the bottom, every number on the bottom gets multiplied by each number on top. So this times that, this times that, okay? So we do 4 first, that's the first number on the bottom that needs to be multiplied by both numbers on top. We start with the 6. 4 times 6 is 24. We put our 4 here, we carry over our 2, carry over, okay? Then we do 4 times 3, that's 12. We add our 2 that we carried over, so 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 is 14. Okay, so when we multiplied all of our ones place by both numbers on top, we got 144. So we can cancel that out because we already did that. We put our 0 to hold our place, and then we go over to the tens place. The same thing, the 2 has to be multiplied by each number on the top. So we do 2 times 6, which is 12. We put our 2 down, we carry over our 1. And that's why this is important to cross these off so that you don't get confused when you come to the next part and you want to add these. You know, oh, the 2's already done with. We already added that one before, so we don't need it anymore. So now we did 2 times 6, put down our 2, carried over our 1, and now we have 2 times 3 is 6, plus the 1 that we carried over is 7. Okay, now we can add them all up and see how nice and neatly lined up they are so that there's no confusion. We know these are the ones place right here, these are the tens, and these are the hundreds. So we are adding them where they're supposed to be. So 4 plus 0 is 4, 4 plus 2 is 6, and 7 plus 1 is 8. So 864. And that one was for problem number 6 on page 329. So this one's a little bit of a harder problem, and it's because we had to carry over 2 times, and that's why I wanted to do one of those. Let's see what else we have in this chapter. We have, okay, we have some word problems, so we'll do some of those. So the first one says, the parking lot was full. If there were 15 rows with 35 cars in each, how many cars were in the parking lot? Okay, so the parking lot was full. There were 15 rows with 35 cars in each. So if we have 15 rows, these are the rows, and then if there's 35 in each, right? Then we automatically know 15 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, we can add all the 15, and 35 in each, we know that we're doing grouping, which means that that's multiplication. Okay, so anytime that there's any kind of grouping going on, it's the same thing as multiplication, because remember at the beginning when we learned, okay, what is the same thing as 3 times 4? Anytime you see this multiplication sign, or this one, or parentheses, okay, anytime you see any of those, then what does it mean? Multiplication means groups of. So you can just do 3 groups of 4 and you would get the same answer. 3 groups of 4, 3 groups of 4. Okay, so it's grouping. Multiplication is grouping. So anytime that you see, oh, this many rows of that, this many, these many boxes with this much inside them, then we're counting by grouping. Anytime that there is a certain amount of rows or boxes or containers or bushes, and then they're saying there's this many bushes, there's 10 berries on each bush, you know that that's counting by grouping. There's this many rows, there's this many cars on each row, there's these many trash cans, there's 15 bottles in each trash can. Anytime you hear something like that, you know that that is grouping. So I want you to think about that and remember, okay, that sounds like grouping, so that means we have to multiply if it sounds like grouping. Okay, so 35 times 15 would be how we set up this problem. Okay, so we do 5 times 5, and see how my 5 is a little bit off to the side? That's not a big deal, but it's nicer if we have it very much aligned. So try to get those numbers underneath each other as closely as possible as you can so that it's very neat. And if you need to, okay, this is something that works really well too. I tell my students, just go ahead and make a line like that so that you don't cross over into this line. You know, because we do have a lot of young students and sometimes it's hard to keep your numbers aligned. Well, then just make this line, okay? And then you know, okay, I can't cross this line to write my numbers in. So 5 times 5 is 25. We put our 5 down, we carry over our 2. Okay? Then we do 5 times 3, that's 15. Okay, but then we have to add these 2 to it. So 15 plus 2 is 17, and that goes here. Okay? Then we cross off our 5. We already did 5 times 5. That gave us the 25. We did 5 times 3. That gave us the 15 plus the 2 gave us the 17. So we already multiplied it by those 2 and we added that 2 as well. Okay? So then now we put in our 0. Our 0, what does it do? Again, the 0, we already did the ones place. So we're not multiplying anything times the ones place anymore. Now we're doing the tens place. When you multiply anything by 10, then you're only going to get tens. You're not going to get ones anymore. So since we're over here at the tens place, we can't have anything in this side. So that's what we put that 0 for. Okay, so we're doing the tens. We do 1 times 5 is 5. And we do 1 times 3 is 3. Okay, now we can add. And we have 5 plus 0 is 5. We have 7 plus 5 is 12. We carry over the 1. We do 3 plus 1 is 5. And we get our answer, which is 525. Okay. The next problem says the mill produced 25 tons of steel each day. How much did it produce in 12 days? So that's the same thing. If it's 25 each day, then we know in 12 days, what would we have to do? We could line it up and do this. We could do 12 days. We could make a circle for each day, okay? And then inside we could put 25, 25, 25. So if you know that you can group it like this until you get 12 days and put 25 in each one, then you know that this is grouping. So you just multiply. Anytime that you can set your problem up that way, or if it's telling you this much in each row, this much in each day, this much in each box, this much in each bush, this much in each, I don't know, pack of string cheese, that you know that it's by grouping. Okay, so I want you to start to see that pattern, because then you just know that it's grouping, and anything that is grouping is multiplication. Okay, and those are the same thing. They're all grouping. Okay, let's see. Every time you see these estimation problems as well, just, it says estimate, round to the nearest 10 and estimate. You don't have to do that unless you're already feeling comfortable with this. Then you can go ahead and estimate and multiply. But I would prefer students to just multiply. Even if it says estimate, just go ahead and multiply and do not estimate. Okay, this is skip counting. Skip, count, and write the numbers. So when you have something like this, you always have to try and see, because we can skip count by 1, 1, 4, that doesn't work. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, that one works. Okay, so you just keep going. You do your 1, you do your 2, you do your 3. Eventually you will see the patterns just by seeing the 4 and the 10. I already knew it was a 2, because those are both, when you're skip counting, you always hear 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So you hear those numbers when you're skip counting. So, so yeah, I already knew that it had to be a 2, because it couldn't be a 1. It's definitely not going to be a 3. So, and 4 is the next number. So could it be anything higher than 4? So just try to see those patterns too, okay? But also check your work and just do 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And if it makes sense all the way through this, from the numbers they give you, then you know that you have the correct answer. Okay, this one, solve for the unknown and fill in the blanks. Okay, so a lot of students have been having a hard time with this because the measurements part in this book is kind of it's hard to remember. But you don't have to remember this. If you just turn to page 435 in your workbook, okay, you can see all of the measurements right here that you're going to need. Everything that's needed in this book, it's right here, symbols and tables. Okay, so if we go back to the page we're working on, okay, and it says 18 teaspoons equals blank tablespoons. Well, we automatically can go here, teaspoons and tablespoons, and you just look for those. Tablespoon is here, teaspoons is here, and it's 3 teaspoons. 3 teaspoons per each tablespoon. Okay, so that means we need more teaspoons because they are the smaller measurement. So if you're filling up a cup with measurements, it always works this way. If you're filling up a cup and you want the cup to be full and you're using a tablespoon, the tablespoon is going to hold more. If you're filling up the cup with sand, the tablespoon will hold more than a teaspoon would. So if one person is using a teaspoon to fill up the cup and another person is using a tablespoon to fill up the cup, then this person with a tablespoon is going to need way less tablespoonfuls to fill up their cup than the person with the tiny little teaspoon. They're going to need a lot more. So we know that this 18 is where our equal sign goes. So it's kind of like when we're setting up the problem, we would know that it would be equals 18. Okay, and then we know that over here we multiply two things to get to 18. And we know how many teaspoons in a tablespoon? We just looked it up. It's 3. So now we can go back and reverse engineer what the number is going to be that we multiply by 18. And if we know, we just say, what times 3 equals 18? And we should know that that is 6. Okay? So that's how you do those. Okay? You just look up the measurement in the back of the book, page 432, I think I said. 435. Page 435, and you'll get your measurement there, and you know that whatever number you get, okay, so you got 3 here. When we looked it up, we saw 3 teaspoons equal 1 tablespoon. Okay, so it's never the 1 tablespoon, it's always the other number that's not 1. So we got the 3. We know that 18 is our big number because we know that it's going to be, the biggest number will be with the smallest measurement. Okay, and I know that's a little bit confusing, but you just have to think of the cup analogy. If I'm filling up a cup with sand and I have 1 big spoon and 1 little spoon, I'm going to need more little spoons to finally fill up my cup than I will need big spoons, because the big spoons hold more. So that's all that means. So if you see the smaller measurement with a number like 18, we know that that's our big one. Okay, we know that the one with the less amount of teaspoons will be the one with the least amount of spoonfuls will be the tablespoon, because they're bigger, so you don't need as many to fill up the cup. So measurements are a little tricky, but if you just get the measurement from the back, you have your first number, which is the times part, and you have that one, the 18, next to the smaller measurement, so that's going to be the equals part. Okay, and then you just find the number that's missing. So let's do another one and see if they have. Okay, they're all the same way. They're all with the smaller measurement next to the number given. So that over here, 24 feet, feet are smaller than yards. Over here, 32 pints, pints are smaller than gallons. So we know when we set up those problems, it's going to be like this, 24 for number 14. And then we're going to put times here, okay? And then we're going to look up how many feet equal 1 yard, and that's 3. So we would put the 3 there, and then we just have to find what number times 3 equals 24. And for 15 would be the same thing. We know that pints are the smaller measurement, so we know that the 32 is going to be over here as the equals portion. I'm sorry. So since we know that 32 pints, that pints are smaller than gallons, then that's going to be the equals portion. And then if we find out how many pints are in a gallon, that is 8. Okay, so we would put times 8, and then we just leave the blank there so that we can solve. And that's how we would set up those problems. And then we just have to figure out what times 3 equals 24. What times 8 equals 32. Okay. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, here's some more word problems. Let me see. Okay, so there's this one. And they always throw, another thing is just recognizing, this is also a skill that has to be learned, is recognizing when you're supposed to multiply and when you're supposed to add, when you're supposed to subtract. All of those things, okay, are important. And if you read this to yourself, you read a problem, you still don't understand it, okay, and you're not sure what you have to do, try reading it out loud. Because in class, that's what I do with the students. Sometimes they're just like, I don't know if I'm supposed to add or subtract, or if I'm supposed to multiply. And I tell them, okay, read it out loud and let's see what it's telling us. And then when they read it out loud, then they figure out what they're supposed to do themselves. So for example, if we look at number 18, it says, traveling down the river in her canoe, Elspeth drifted lazily along for 240 yards. When the river got rocky, she picked up her way carefully for 335 yards. Then she entered the rapids and paddled furiously for another 124 yards. How many yards down the river did she travel in all? Okay, so it's saying in all, and that's one of the key words that I've been teaching our students this semester. In all, altogether, in total. Okay, those are clues that it might be addition. Okay, and if you think about, instead of thinking about Elspeth, you can think of yourself. I can say, I drifted along the river for 240 yards, then I started going, and it was lazily for 240 yards. Then I started to go really fast for 335 yards, and then I went really fast in the rapids, furiously, for 124 yards. So if those are all the yards that I'm traveling, they're just different. This one's lazy, that one is, she started going a little bit faster, and then over here she started going furiously fast. Then if I know that that's all of the different ways that I went down, then I know that all of these just have to be added together, okay? Because this is how much I went lazy, this is how much I went a little faster, and this is how much I went really fast. So in order to find out how much I traveled in all, then I just have to add. For this one, the same thing. This one is a two-step one, number 19. It says a crossword puzzle had 61 clues down and 57 clues across. Okay, Steve figured out 59 of the clues. How many are left? Okay, so first of all, to figure out how many are left, when we hear how many are left, that's usually when we're getting less of something. So, and less is usually subtraction. It can also be division, but we're not there yet. But for now, it's subtraction. So if we have, if I say, oh, I used to have this many, 5 dolls, but then I gave some away to my friend, and I gave my friend some of my dolls, and now I have 3 left. Then that means I gave away some of them, I have less of them. So I'm not going to have 5 anymore, I'm going to have less. And I would have to find out how many I gave away based on that problem. But over here, okay, in order to subtract, first we have to know how many clues total do we have. Okay, so we have 61 down, 57 across. So we would add those first, because first we have to know how many we have in total before we subtract how many we've already completed. Okay, so he's completed 59 of them, but we don't know how many he has total first. So we put these numbers, 61 plus 57, and we add them. 7 plus 1 is 8, and 5 plus 6 is 11. Okay, so, and this is another thing, always look at your signs here, okay, because a lot of students have been getting confused with multiplication and addition. Look at your sign before you even start to solve the problem, okay? That way you don't get confused. Okay, so now we know that total we have 118 clues. Okay, so we have 118. So, and then Steve already figured out 59 of them. So in order to find out how many are left, we have to subtract the amount that Steve already figured out. Okay, and then when we do this, we have none here. We have 8 minus 9, but that is not enough because we only have 8. We don't have 9. So we have to borrow from this guy. That becomes a 0 because he only had 1 and he gave us his last one. Okay, 18 minus 9 is 9. It's good to know our doubles because that helps us a lot with addition, because 9 plus 9 is 18. So 18 minus 9 is going to give us 9. Okay, and then this 0, we can't give anyone 5 if we have 0. So we can take this, that becomes a 0, we bring it over here, and we have 10 minus 5 is 5. So how many are left? 59 clues are left. Okay, so that's the answer. Okay, so those are two-step problem. First you add to find out how many total clues we have. Then we can take away how many Steve has already figured out. Okay. Okay. Okay, a lot of students were, this problem is a little confusing for them, so I'm going to go over that one. Number 20. It says, when he made apple pies, Leo used 7 apples per pie. He cut each apple into 8 slices. How many slices of apple are needed for 3 pies? Multiply 2 ways to find the answer. do the multiplication inside the parentheses first each time. So this is where I taught the students something called PEMDAS. I'm sure you guys remember that, some of you anyway. PEMDAS, and it stands for Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally, but it really stands for parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So when you're doing something that's in parentheses, that always goes first because the P in PEMDAS is first. So if there's any parentheses in your problem, it's good to know this order of operations, so you know what has to be done first, and then you can make sure you get the correct answer. So over here, you know, they have these parentheses, so we know that whatever's inside of these parentheses has to be multiplied first before we can move along. Okay, so first of all, when we look into the problem, it says he made apple pies, right? And Leo used 7 apples per pie, and he cut each apple into 8 slices. So if he cut each apple into 8 slices and there was 7 apples for each pie, 7 apples cut into 8 slices each. Remember, that's grouping because we're seeing how many slices in each apple. So then that would be 56 slices per apple. I mean per pie. Per pie. Okay? Okay, so 7 apples per each pie and 8 slices from each one of those apples. That becomes 56 slices of apple per pie. Okay? And then they ask how many slices of apples are needed for 3 pies. So then we do 56 times 3, and that is 3 times 6 is 18. Put our 8 down, carry our 1 over. Okay. Then we do 3 times 5 is 15, plus 1 is 16. And we have 168. Now when we do it, see, the way we did it was this way, because we did it one step at a time, just like the problem wanted. So this would be 168, because that's what we did. We did 7, we did right here, 7 times 8, in parentheses, we got 56. And then whatever we got from that in parentheses, which was 56, we multiplied by 3. So that was 168. So this would be 168. Now over here, the reason they're wanting you to do it 2 different ways is because multiplication gives you the same answer no matter which way you multiply, and they wanted you to see that. So if you do 8 times 3, that is 24. And if you do, so that's what we did in parentheses right here, okay? So 8 times 3, 24. Okay, now whatever we get from that, we have to multiply by 7. So we got 24, so we are multiplying 24 times 7. And then 7 times 4 is 28, so we put our 8 down, bring over our 2. Then we have 7 times 2 is 14. 14 plus 2 is 16. So we get the same thing, 168. Okay, so regardless of how you multiply, in what order, if you're only doing multiplication, you can multiply all of your numbers and you'll get exactly the same. Because multiplication is adding by grouping. And if you add 4 plus 3, it equals 7. And if you do 3 plus 4, it equals 7. It doesn't matter how you put the numbers, it's still going to be 7. So that's the same thing with multiplication. It doesn't matter how you put the numbers, which ones you add first. If you do 3 plus 4 plus 1, that equals 8. And if you do 1 plus 3 plus 4, that equals 8. It doesn't matter which order they're in. And that's the same thing with multiplication. If you do 1 times 3 times 4, that is still 12. Okay? So no matter which way it's in. So that's what they wanted you to learn from doing that. Okay. And okay, that's all for this chapter.